Oh, all right. We are live on YouTube. This is the day 30 commentary of Islamicize Me. And as promised, I have a very special guest. His name is Robert Spencer. He literally just teleported right into your screen as he is wont to do. And I'm very excited. Everybody, let me know if you can hear me. I see we've already got 42 people watching, which is awesome. And Robert Spencer, welcome to Islamicize Me behind the scenes.
Great to be here. Thank you. How you doing? It's good to see you again.
Doing all right. Seriously, yeah. We had a blast filming this thing.
Yes.
And have you shown this to anyone, like peers or maybe younger family members? Because they probably would think you're really cool now.
Yeah, actually, my kids love it, and they were just thrilled. And they thought it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. I was very pleased about that, yeah.
That's good. I mean, because you're like Jedi Knight, wizard, whatever. People have asked us about that, Robert. They said, in Islamicize Me, is Robert Spencer evil? And because some people thought that. And here was what we said. Tell me what you think. We said a few things. Number one, this is partially from the actor's perspective. So they perceive him in a certain kind of way. We're sort of showing their perspective abstractly. Number two, it's partially based upon the not so funny fact that at least 2 attempts on your life have actually been made, but by God's grace, they haven't been able to get you. So we're sort of jesting with that as if you're untouchable, which we know is not true, but we're having fun with that fact. That was my 2 thoughts on how this ended up. And there's one more third reason. Actually, there's a fourth reason. We didn't want to have you doing real violence against people, blasting them with machine guns or something. So we had to have another way for you to escape these predicaments. Number 4, it just has great comedic action value. So those are the reasons. Do you have any other reasons to your character's backstory and the origin of his powers?
Okay, the only thing I could say about that is that the point of view of the actors is what I was thinking, that these guys are committed Muslims, they are jihadis. And so, the prophet Isaiah says, woe to those who call evil good and good evil. And right. I was thinking about it in that way, that I constantly actually come up against Muslims on Twitter, Muslims elsewhere who say, this Spencer, he's such an evil person. He does these terrible things, because I talk about what's in the Islamic texts. And so I was thinking about it that way, that these guys, because they are so immersed in evil, they think that somebody who is opposed to their evil is evil himself, because their perspective is completely turned around and skewed. They are Isaiah's woe personified.
Right. That's awesome. You broke it down even further. I'm so glad I asked you. That was a great answer. Well, listen, there's already a bunch of people asking you questions, but I'm going to tell everyone in the live chat, number 1, thank you very much for being here. Please take the link and spread it right now. Now's the time to do it. But we're going to save questions towards the end of this show. What we're going to do is play a number of the episodes that Robert was in, and him and I are just going to chat over the video while it's kind of playing in the background. And we're going to give some running commentary as well as wander off into other topics, kind of like they do in a behind-the-scenes DVD commentary. You'll notice it's playing, but then they discuss other things as it comes up. We're going to do it very similar to that. With that, Robert, before we start, is there anything you want to say? For example, you may want to plug a new book you have dropping soon.
Okay, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you asked. I have a book coming out very soon. It's actually already available for pre-order on Amazon, Run, Don't Walk. It's called The History of Jihad from Muhammad to ISIS. It is the first and only book in the English language that actually comprehensively treats the entire history of jihad from the beginning to now, not just against Europe, which has been written about before and is also in this book, but in India, in Africa. I think that this book is the crown and completion of my entire work for the last 20 years in trying to alert people to this threat. That I've written about the Quran. I've written a book called The Complete Infidel's Guide to the Quran. I've written about Muhammad. I wrote a biography of Muhammad called The Truth About Muhammad. And I think 3 books, The Complete Infidel's Guide to the Quran, The Truth About Muhammad, and The History of Jihad. The History of Jihad really completes the whole case, because people know now, if they're informed about these issues, that there are problematic passages in the Quran. People know there are problematic things about Muhammad, as we see in the hadith that you guys are living out in Islamicize Me. But a lot of people still think, well, you know, when it came to history, there were times when Muslim rulers were tolerant and there were eras of peace and so on. There's so many historical myths. And this book not only explodes all the historical myths, but it also shows how our entire foreign policy establishment and our response to the jihad around the world since 9/11 is completely on the wrong track. And I'm hoping to show that, not just to say it, but to show it in this book by showing that, well, everywhere Muslims have gone, they have behaved in a consistent manner. And why do we think we're going to be different? And I prove that everywhere Muslims have gone, they behaved in a consistent manner in this book.
Right. So you show what we might call the pattern of history.
Yes.
To demonstrate the case of sort of the application of enough of the Islamic community that it equals in a movement like this. And it happens in case after case, basically.
Exactly. And so if you have a ideology that inspires people to behave in a consistent manner for 1400 years, and then you invite large numbers of those people into your home, they're going to behave in a consistent manner in your home. And yet the entire foreign policy and much of the domestic policy of North America and Western Europe, the United States, Canada, and the Western European countries and Great Britain, is based on the assumption that they're going to behave differently here, that it's all different now. And there is the history of jihad proves that there is no basis for that assumption.
Right. Oh, well, here's one comment I do want to read, Robert. Miss Cordy Pie says, I've been replying to Muslim comments, greeting each other with Eid Mubarak, telling them to look up Islamicize Me. Thought you would like that. Apparently that's a new greeting.
That's beautiful.
But one more time, the name of the book, Robert.
The History of Jihad, From Muhammad to ISIS, available now for pre-order on Amazon and at barnesandnoble.com.
All right, awesome. Well, with that, guys, again, I appreciate everybody watching. We got a lot of people. Hang in there, guys. We're going to save your questions to the end. In the meantime, be sure to share this. I'm going to begin to share my screen, and we are going to give commentary on day 30, which is the last episode proper of Islamicize Me. But we're actually going to begin with the first appearance of the Kafir King, a.k.a. Robert Spencer, with episode 26. Since he is here, it makes wonderful sense. My screen is now being shared. You should be able to see it, everybody. And I'm going to now speak on this. Now, if you remember, everyone, day 25 ended with us getting a convert. So I'm sure you guys have seen this. We had a convert, and then, well, prior to that, he was a dhimmi, actually. But he went from a dhimmi to a convert. Oh, what do you think of this graphic? Do you see the graphic on the screen, Robert?
Well done. Well done. Absolutely. Yes. I was impressed by that. And, impressed by a lot of things in this episode. The floor lighting for me was fun, but it illustrates what we were discussing before. I kind of thought about it as being from the convert's point of view, that he busts in to my room with his knife drawn, and he encounters what, from his warped perspective, is practically an embodiment of evil.
Right. Yeah, no, you got it. See, that's awesome that you see. And I like that, a lot of people that are sort of have a scholastic mind, sometimes they don't always have an artistic mind, right brain, left brain. But I like that it seems like you're able to function within the realm of some level of creativity and art too, because this is apologetics, it's polemic specifically, it's satire, but there's an artistic aspect to this. So I'm glad you could see that.
Well, thanks, Vocab. I don't know if I ever could have conceived of a series like this. For years, I have wanted to make a movie of my biography of Muhammad, The Truth About Muhammad. And of course, I've even approached Hollywood directors about it, and they just sort of laugh nervously and act like I'm joking because nobody wants to touch it. It would make such a terrific movie, but nobody wants to do it because they know what would happen if they did. And so kudos to all of you for having the courage to do this.
Right. Someone in the live stream is saying, Mr. Spencer, this is Snoops 100, would you do another acting job with David and his group?
Oh, anytime. Ask me, I'll be there.
Just say your name and you'll be there.
My name.
We're gonna take this. We're gonna take this on the road and become an improv troupe. All right, let's continue on with at day 26, Jihad Junior versus the Coffer King. So here he is, reportedly outside of your hotel room. We're of course being cowardly. We're back at the van safely. He's on a walkie-talkie, which I like. Now, let me make this a little smaller here.
I wasn't there when you guys filmed this, and it made me laugh. I thought it was one of the most deft comedic sections of the whole thing when David starts saying raisin head, and then you explain, oh yeah, that's okay because Muhammad said it. And John's take is just beautiful when he turns to you and he says, wait, what?
Yeah.
He's just realizing this thing is shot through with racism that he never realized.
Right.
And it's just beautifully done. Very light, goes by quickly, but the point is made wonderfully.
The timing that the comedic timing got pretty good in a lot of these episodes. I just loved it. And you're right, John did it great. It's just funny in the conversation they're having in the van. And then I don't know if you know this, when he takes a selfie, I've got it kind of paused on there. He just took his selfie. Yeah. The reason why that was in there, and it's, this is dark comedy at points, okay? We admit that. It's partially because my former debate partner, not partner, but as in opposition, Elton Simpson, tweeted on his way to try to kill you and put hashtag Texas attack.
Wow. I never heard that before. I never heard that at all. The FBI has been so terrible and corrupt and unforthcoming about all this. I know that they had an agent that was in touch with Simpson, but I never heard this before. I just took the selfie here as being a reference to so many jihad attacks where the jihad attacker actually films the attack and puts it on YouTube or wherever he can. One of the most notorious examples of that is Mohamed Merah in Toulouse, France, a few years ago. He murdered a number of people in a Jewish school and actually chased an 8-year-old girl down a hallway and shot her multiple times. And he got it all on his GoPro camera.
Jeez, I don't even think I knew about that story. I've never heard of that one.
Terrible story. But that kind of video is very popular among jihadis. And there are a number of jihadis who have been, a lot of times when they're killed in the attack, they're found to be wearing video apparatus so that their attack is live streamed somewhere or filmed for later.
Yeah, or like the guy in London who filmed it and just stood out in the street with the machete after he killed the guy.
Yeah, with his knife full of blood. What was his name?
Michael something?
Oh, Ali Malaho, yeah. Of course, that's his name before he converted to Islam. The murderer of Lee Rigby beheaded a British soldier right on the street in London.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's your first official appearance. Do you have anything? Do you want to comment on anything with this? You have free reign.
Well, I guess one of the main things is seeing it is just a kind of a side note. In seeing it actually done, there is a lot of work that went into this and a great deal of professionalism. This was filmed in sections.
Right.
When he came in, he didn't say a thing, and that was put in later on. It's all seamless. It looks as if it was all done at once, and I'm very impressed by the camera work and the editing work that David did to weave all this together.
And it's also two separate hotel rooms.
That's right. Yes. And it was so much fun to do. Of course, the direction was very simple. Laugh. And I laughed. And then the more I laughed, and then they would say, do it again. You remember. And the more I laughed, the more I kind of started to get carried away. So that I remember the first time I started laughing really maniacally. And then the take was ruined because everybody else in the room started laughing. And it was so much fun to do. And then we did get one with the maniacal laugh, and I don't know, maybe start doing that in debates.
Doing that in debates, psychological warfare. I love this, where you're sitting there and then you say G.I. Junior's not here over the walkie-talkie.
Yeah, that's a shout out. David has such a cinematic vocabulary in his head. And so that's, of course, a reference to The Shining, where I forget the line, but the little kid says somebody's not there. And the other thing, Robert Come Out to Play from episode 28 is from The Warriors. And all these things. It's really, there's so many levels to this. It's a lot of fun to watch and then go back and see things you didn't notice the first time.
Yeah, that episode was probably the most cinematic out of all of them.
Yes.
The one we just watched. And it is true that the editing that David did, especially on that one, the sound editing alone was a miraculous job. He just knocked it out of the park.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely, because it's level and consistent throughout. And yet I know that all this was done in multiple takes and on different occasions, because you must have had the convert come into some other room at some other time and say his lines.
Yeah.
So it was all very well done.
And it is true what you said. I remember when we were in the hotel room and they told you to start laughing. And once you really got into it, you embraced it and you went all the way, everyone there just started laughing too, because it was just so over the top so much. And it's like, well, he's a natural. It's just so funny.
I got to give a shout out to Sam Shamoon when you say a natural. Sam was just astonishing, you know, in both roles, as Halal Hogan and as the Imam. Especially, I saw one of the sermons being preached. I have to even take credit, but I'm not taking credit myself, but just highlighting Sam's improvisational ability. He actually asked right before the cameras rolled, what should I talk about? And I said, talk about how you have to blow your nose 3 times when you wake up in the morning to get Satan out, because he goes and lives in your nose at night. And then he just took that and riffed and went with it. And he comes up with this absolutely zany, wonderful, fabulously funny sermon. And I thought, wow, you know, Sam is a terrific apologist and activist, but really he ought to think about going into comedy. And
seriously, I mean, it was amazing. By the way, if you guys are wondering, I just got off work, so I'm a little tired. What am I doing? I've drank my first shot of espresso. I finished my second. I went to my third, and now I brought up a whole tray. I've got 2 left here, everybody. So
up all night.
No, this will just keep me up for a little bit. I'm not saying it's healthy, but sometimes an apologist got to do what an apologist got to do.
Oh, I guess it's earlier there too. Yeah, it's late out.
All right. Well, hey, these are great comments. This is awesome. Let me go to the next one, which is I believe day 28. No, wait. We just did 26. So let's now go to 28 and play this and start offering some commentary on day 28. Islamicize Me with Robert Spencer. I tell you what, I forgot that this was here because I don't want to get too much into this, but here it is.
Oh, what a masterstroke.
Right.
To have those sermons, those statements being there about how Muhammad is deserving of mockery from a gentleman who thinks that the whole thing shouldn't have been done. David is such a genius in this kind of thing, and my hat's off to him.
People said that it was it's like a jiu-jitsu move.
Yes, absolutely.
And I mean, it does appear when you watch it that
very backwards in its orientation.
That our project is almost being co-signed.
Much of this will strike
almost, you know, it's being like endorsed. It almost looks like that. You know,
well, he says that these things are worthy of mockery. Then when you mock them, he says it's wrong. So if he says it's worthy of mockery and it's in the video, it's fair game.
What should we say?
Yeah, I thought it was a good way to include it. With it was like not too I don't know, nasty or harsh or biting. It's more just witty. And I just feel like anyone with a good sense of humor should enjoy it. I don't know. It's good. Do you notice how Jamal's character has samurai swords on his back?
Yes.
I mean, we're not really saying, everyone, that jihadis rock samurai swords. We're just being ridiculous. I hope people understand that. And we're also not saying that they sharpen their Damascus steel blades with the same rocks that they use go and clean themselves for the restroom. That's what David is doing there, by the way. That's one of our restroom rocks. Did you notice when Dennis says, we got to kill Robert Spencer and anyone who happens to be there with him? I don't know if you caught that.
No, actually, I didn't.
He just said that's a line he says in there. And I thought that was interesting he said that, because that is kind of the mentality, you know?
Well, this is based on your friend Simpson and Susie, and they went to kill Pamela Geller, and there's no doubt that they would have killed many other people, including me, if they had been able to get into the building. Yeah,
I am glad they weren't. I remember the first time we did an interview, I was trying to explain to you that he was actually a likable person. And I said something like, I wish you could have known him. And you said, well, I'm kind of glad I didn't.
But I understand your point, Vocab, because the fact is that this the kind of murder that jihadis commit comes from their desire to please God. And their idea of God is all wrong. And it's a fulfillment of what Jesus says when he says the time will come when men will kill you and think they're offering service to God.
Right.
But there's no doubt that he could be he was somebody who was trying to do good by his lights. And the problem was that the ideology and the religion that he embraced was telling him that evil was good.
Yeah.
And so ultimately that overwhelmed him and drove him to do what he did. But it wasn't as if he was some kind of a maniac or psychopath who was violent in general and embraced this. He was no doubt, as you say, you knew him. He was a good soul and an ordinary individual. And it was his beliefs that led him to embrace violence and murder.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to be obviously an apologist for a jihadi. I'm just trying to give people a full perspective. And I think you and I both would probably think there's some folks who get into Islam almost as an excuse for maybe what we might call thuggery or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Prison converts.
Yes. Yeah. The problem.
Thugs, and then this just validates it.
Yes. But the problem with Islamic ideology, if taken seriously from the sources, is that it actually can turn someone who is not already thinking that way or predisposed to that into that kind of person as well. That's what it seems.
Yeah. That it takes people who are good and makes them evil. If the person involved takes everything that is said seriously, and especially the multiple exhortations to commit violence against unbelievers.
And that's what's supposed to be happening here. And so if you notice, we're pulling up and there's a flashback that Dennis has, because remember, this is after a failed attempt where the sheikh says, the problem is you don't just kill him, you need to terrorize him. And that's why he does the menacing bottle thing with the Robert come out and play, is to that end. I'm going to make this full screen because this is also a great little ditty here. Now, I love the editing on this. It was done very well. The way you appear, it was done really awesome.
Yes.
Do you have any secrets or things you remember about filming this day you'd like to share with everybody?
I was impressed with you guys. I had the easy part. All I had to do was sit in the car. And I wasn't even in the car, of course, when this part was being filmed. I was waiting outside and then got in the car and I say, okay, what's the game? And you guys have to jump out of the car. I felt especially bad for you in particular.
Yeah.
Because you had to jump into the front seat and then out.
Yeah.
And I was wondering how you kept doing that 3 or 4 or 5 times without getting hurt.
Here you go.
What's the game?
He's a djinn. He's a djinn.
He's a djinn. Yes.
I had to do that without dropping that blade on anybody too.
Yes.
Now I forgot where the cameraman were, because if you look, it's almost like it really does look like there's no one there.
Well, I remember that took a lot of careful work as well, because one of the first problems in the first take or the first few takes was that as the doors, obviously there were people closing the doors. I didn't really close them by means of the force. The cameraman and the people closing the doors were visible in the reflection of the car door itself. And so they had to stand at a far enough angle where they could reach to close the door and film the thing without being seen. And that took some doing.
Yeah, and they had to coordinate each door roughly at the same time, so it looked like.
Yep. So it took quite a bit of work. It all looks like it happened in an instant. And I don't know, how long did it take us to get it? Probably an hour or two.
Yeah.
And what I wonder about this scene now, Vocab, is it's amazing to me that David is sitting there at the bus stop with a big machete.
Yeah.
and nobody's around. No, there's no cops. Nobody's saying, hey, there's a guy at the bus stop with a machete. It's just another day in Phoenix.
Basically, not only that, but Robert, when we were waiting for the bus stop, the cameraman was in the middle of traffic. So he was in the middle of the lane on the street. And I thought the way the shot was going to go is the bus was going to pull away and he was going to get a shot of it. And so it would look like we had gotten on the bus. But to make that happen, we needed to disappear. So I said, okay, everyone, as soon as the bus goes, we need to hurry up and run and hide behind a car. So what we did is the bus pulls up, and once we tell them we're not actually getting on, we run as fast as we can and go and hide behind cars. And then when the bus pulls away, but I guess we didn't need that shot because the cameraman actually came over and was like, hey, what? And I was like, oh, you didn't get that shot? So he didn't actually even get it. He just got the bus without pulling away. But it looked super suspicious. We did get a little bit of attention. 4 or 5 ladies came out. I don't know where they were. And they were on their phones, and all they were doing is looking and talking. But I don't think anyone called the cops or anything. They were just kind of looking. And I was like, guys, let's try to get out of here.
Yeah, well, they might have been wondering if it was Islamophobic or racist to report you. I mean,
seriously.
Yeah, seriously. This is a big problem. There's a story I tell often, Vocab, of the Fort Dix plot, when there were Muslims who were planning to shoot up the military base at Fort Dix, which is in New Jersey, I believe. And they were going to go in, shoot as many American soldiers as possible before they themselves got killed. But their plot was foiled when they took their jihad DVDs. No, sorry, they took their jihad VHS tapes to a video store to get them transferred to DVD. And the kid who was doing the job saw what was on the tapes. And he went to his boss and he said, I've seen some very disturbing things on these videos. Should I go to the police or would that be racist?
Wow.
And that's the number that the Islamic advocacy groups on the left have done on us, that people actually think that it could be racist to resist jihad. So I can just picture the ladies you're talking about in the parking lot there saying, well, there's 3 guys in Muslim garb and one of them's got a big machete. And should we call the police or would that be racist?
Right. I was almost hoping at one time that somebody would call on us just so I could feel more secure, because we did a lot of other suspicious stuff, such as walking around with this backpack, and we were putting it in different vans and different places in a parking garage by a hotel. But no one ever called. No one ever called on us.
Yep. If you see something, say nothing, because you could be accused of Islamophobia.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, this is funny. People were asking me if when I threw down my sunglasses, if they broke. Guys, those sunglasses survived that journey, but about 2 weeks later, they did break. So I think the sunglasses died from their injuries that day at a later time, but they didn't immediately break. People were asking about that. There's a lot more questions on here, guys, but it's funny. People were so worried about the sunglasses. I was hoping those glasses he threw were like $5 props after he threw them. They were $5, but it wasn't a prop. Those are my real sunglasses, everybody. Oh boy. The things people notice, it's funny. So let me see what else we got here. Oh yeah. So we I think we told you before we performed it out, the gag with the idea of Robert Spencer stole our caravan. what kind of man robs another man's caravan?
I loved it. That's terrific. Yes.
Can you say something briefly? I don't know what's off the top of your head because we never really were able to get into the series. Could you say something briefly about the caravan robberies and maybe the excuse sometimes it's given, if you could?
Yeah, that's actually the first violence that Muhammad orders in Islamic tradition. In Islamic history, when after the Hijrah, when the Muslims moved from Mecca to Medina, and Muhammad for the first time becomes a head of state and a head of a military, as well as a religious leader, he doesn't tell the Muslims, okay, now start a farm or open a shop or whatever. He tells them, go out and raid the caravans of the Quraysh, the Arabs of Mecca. And so it's from the raiding of the caravans that the Quraysh tradesmen had, because they would go up into Syria and trade according to Islamic tradition. There's actually no record of this. This is part of the reason why there are a lot of questions about whether any of this has historical value or at all, because there's no record in the records that tradesmen left when they would go between Europe and India, that they ever actually went down into southwestern Arabia to Mecca. But in any case, the story is that the Quraysh would go up to Syria, would trade, and come back these caravans laden with goods, and the Muslims would rob the caravans. And so I thought it was really, I couldn't believe it, that it was as if you guys had thought of everything, that you had a Dodge Caravan. And
but seriously,
and turnabout.
The funny thing was that we were just given a caravan. Like we didn't ask for a caravan.
I assumed all this time that David had ordered a caravan.
No,
Wow.
So there's a lot of things like that in the series that came together providentially. So we had it, and one day when we were writing the script out, I said, wait a minute. The vehicle he's going to steal is a caravan. David's like, yeah. I'm like, Robert Spencer can rob our caravan and we can have this whole misunderstanding that will show the hypocrisy from the Sheikh about robbing caravans. We'll play up on it. And he was like, yes.
Oh, it was just brilliant. Yes.
It was just, so yeah, it's pretty, that's pretty funny. David actually is in the chat, and David says, we don't need Hollywood to make Life of Muhammad movie. We can make our own Lego stop animation version.
Okay, I'm game. I still want to make one with live actors.
Okay.
I'll even play Muhammad. I'll grow the beard out. I'll do it. I'll dye it with henna.
You got the laugh down, I guess.
I don't know. He didn't like laughter. Remember, he says you don't show your back teeth when you laugh. You have to be solemn, you know?
Oh, he really said that?
Yep, absolutely.
You don't show your back teeth when you laugh.
Yeah, you could do another 30 days of Islamicize me with more crazy hadith. There's so many.
Oh, my goodness. If we ever do another Islamicize me, it'd be fun to consult you in greater detail before we kind of sit down with everything, because
I'm happy to help.
Oh, boy. Okay, well, all right.
I have to point out, you have day 30 comments advertised. Maybe we should get to day 30 so as not to cheat anyone.
We will. So we're going to do day 29, and then we'll do day 30, because it'll give us, and after that, we'll just take questions and we'll be done. So Let me start it. I do agree. I like that you stay on task. Thank you very much. That's good. All right, everybody. Here we go. We're going to do day 29. We'll talk, and then we'll do day 30. All right, so this is one of my, I like this.
Good morning, it is Fodger time.
Look, the way he gets up so fast. Hold on, wait a minute. Okay.
I've commented to people.
That's a terrific thing also, Vocab, that you have good morning, it's Fodger time, or variations on it in so many episodes, and they get more and more crazy in their reactions until of course, the next day, day 30, where they're really frenzied. But it's a nice build-up, and it's another one of the things that you notice if you see this more than once. Pay close attention.
Yeah, so he's waking up with the sword.
And the sword gets bigger all the time through the month.
And notice, So the joke on here was I'm saying all these positive things. It's a beautiful day. There's sunshine.
It is Fajr time.
Fajr
We have many
time.
things to pray about. We will thank Allah for the beautiful sunshine and little bunnies.
Little
and things
bunnies.
Like that. And also, thank you for his deliverance of.
So I say thank you for this beautiful sunshine and little bunnies and flowers, and thank you for his deliverance of Robert Spencer's head on a platter. You know.
And look at David. My goodness.
I know that was a great shot, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Let me freeze frame that again one more time. That's just
Bunnies.
There. That man's ready to kill.
seriously.
And also, thank you for his deliverance of Robert Spencer's head into a platter.
Now, how was it with his dark humor of hearing people talk about murdering you so frequently? How was that?
Well, there's no doubt it's a little creepy, but at the same time, as you pointed out at the beginning, they have already tried to kill me twice, and it's not like I'm going to live forever. And so, it is what it is. I actually was actually honored that David asked me to be in this and be the central villain, really, in their proceedings.
Well, I mean, you did it smashingly. I think David was more surprised, like the way he expressed it to me was almost that you pretty much signed on with very little knowledge of what you're getting into.
Well, I've been familiar with David's work for years, and we have debated together. We've also debated each other once on Did Muhammad Exist? That's on YouTube. And I have a lot of respect for his work, and so I had no problem signing on without knowing much of what it was, because I knew that if it was David's creation, it was going to be good.
That's good. And I think David, he would, whenever we would talk about your involvement behind the scenes, he would always say something like, he's got this major magnum opus book coming out, and yet he's willing to do Islamicize me at the same time. Because I don't think David was thinking it was going to help. I think he was thinking it was going to hurt. He's like, here's this major scholastic historical work, and then he's in this YouTube videos with us.
And something that's interesting about that is that both have the same intent.
Ah, good. There you go. Now, I want to ask you about this. By the way, these are my kiddos.
Is that right? I was wondering about these poor kids. In the first place, it's brilliant that John says right here, "Are you a Muslim?" Because there have been so many jihad attacks around the world where they ask that. Even in Minnesota, there was one not long ago where the guy is in a mall with a big machete and he's asking people, "Are you a Muslim?" He lets the Muslims go and stabs the non-Muslims.
Oh, really? He was actually asking that. Wow.
Yeah, St. Cloud, Minnesota.
Could you talk about the relationship of some of the understanding of kafir or infidel property? Because we were also trying to get at the idea of the view of other people's property. Because watch this real quick, and then I want to see if you could briefly talk about it. Watch this stunt kid, by the way. He goes flying really well.
Yeah, I thought, my goodness, is the kid hurt?
Give me your butt,
No, we did a few takes of that, but that's my son Malachi. He's quite the stunt double in real life himself. So that was just another day in the life for him, to be honest. Like, he's really good at that type of stuff. Yeah, he did a great job acting. And then my little one just gets pushed down.
Yes. But also, this is a good illustration of the hadith where Muhammad says, "I have been commanded to fight against people until they confess that there's no God but Allah and I am his messenger. And when they do, their lives and property are safe from me," which is a statement of saying their lives and property are not safe as long as they don't become Muslim. And so a Muslim can seize the property of the infidels and it's just fine.
Can I ask you, what's the rationale given that you can seize infidels' property? How does that not violate thou shalt not steal? What's the rationale?
Thou shalt not steal is not an Islamic principle.
I know, but I'm just saying, what's the rationale that's given?
What's that?
What's the rationale that's given, though?
Well, the earth belongs to Allah. Everything belongs to Allah. And the infidels are in rebellion against Allah. And so their lives and property can be taken because of that rebellion. And the Ten Commandments are not in Islam. It's noteworthy that Pharaoh and Moses and the Exodus from Egypt and all that are in the Quran multiple times. The story's told about 8 or 9 times. And yet, never in all those retellings of the story is the 10 Commandments. That's always left out.
Wow. Well, they're certainly violated. That's something I'd like to personally study myself more, the Islamic view of non-Muslims' property. It's it's just
it belongs to the Muslims, essentially, because the Muslims are the ones who are obedient to the will of Allah. Allah owns the whole world, owns everything. The property is not rightly the property of the non-Muslims to start with.
So here John asks about the caravan, and we obviously this is all a joke. The Sheikh misunderstands as if he's asking, because we word it in a way that makes it sound like he's asking about the caravan raids performed by Muhammad. And so the Sheikh starts to give an answer, but he says the Kufa were basically begging to be raided, is what he says.
Yes. Well, that's actually the kind of answer that real sheikhs will give.
What do they say? I'm curious.
Well, they actually claim that, for example, all of Muhammad's battles were defensive.
Yes, I've heard that. I've heard that a lot.
That Muslims were just minding their own business when the kuffar came and made war on them. It's absolutely false. There's no justification for it within the Islamic texts themselves. But this is often claimed because, of course, offensive warfare is a lot harder to sell than defensive warfare.
Right.
Apologetic in intent, but it's dishonest.
And so now he realizes we're talking about you.
Well, now that makes things different. That wicked kafir should be shish kebab, and we must make sure that his books do not be sold in the market where there are Muslims.
So that was funny the way because I had it written slightly different than that, but I thought it was funny the way he said, make sure his books are not sold in the marketplace where there are Muslims.
Sam's a genius. This was largely improvised, and I was just so impressed that he was able to come out with this stuff.
Yes. Furthermore, additionally, also, too, someone should make a cartoon drawing of Robert Spencer.
Someone should make a cartoon drawing of Robert Spencer. Jamal asks why. Obviously, because that's the worst thing you could do to someone.
Love it.
Why? Because obviously, the worst thing you can do to someone is make a cartoon drawing of that person. Alhamdulillah, the healing mercy of Allah extends to the kafirs.
Every time my head is down, it's because I'm laughing. Yeah, because
that's funny because somebody asked me the other day, wasn't it hard to film all these things because you kept busting out laughing? Of course, busting out laughing was part of what I had to do. But I also thought, well, when you're in it and you have to do it right and the lighting has to be right and the angles have to be right and okay, let's do it again this way. You're not really thinking about how funny it is. You're just getting it done. You know what I mean? But of course, there you're mostly listening. I can understand. Probably if I had been one of the Muslims in the congregation, I'd have been laughing too.
Right. So here's where he says he challenges you to a debate, even in Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yes.
Wow.
That was another line he made up, right?
I don't remember how it happened, but it became the setup for a shout out to Chick-fil-A, of course. Which you wanted to make sure, because if I remember, there was 2 versions of that joke. One was I prefer Chick-fil-A, but there was something else we had in there, but I forgot what it was.
I don't remember. The whole thing is just silly, and it just seemed like as long as we're operating in the realm of farce to some degree, then we'll just keep running with it.
So it's funny. I don't know if everyone caught. He says I challenge him to a public debate, even in Kentucky Fried Chicken. And he says, or we could just kill him. But right when he says that, the sound comes on, and here you go.
Did someone say public debate? Oh, look, it's the Copper King himself. Maybe it's a jinn. Ooh. For my first wish, I wish that Robert Spencer would drop dead, or that someone would kill him to death.
So the idea that's funny is someone mistakes you for a genie, and then we wish you would fulfill our wish, which is to kill Robert Spencer, who is you. So
getting very meta there.
Yeah, it's like the Three Stooges of Islam,
Yeah, well, there was a lot of Three Stooges vibe in this, I thought.
Because
Absolutely.
it's such dark material that if we don't make it comedic, it's just going to be dark the whole time.
Yes, absolutely. I think that, well, you know, St. Thomas More said, the devil is a proud spirit, cannot endure to be mocked. And it's interesting to me that people object to this mockery because I think it's actually one of the most effective things you can do in the face of evil.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a powerful thing, and that's why, like, if you look at for example, when the Nazis took power, Joseph Goebbels made they make political humor. They outlaw it. That's something that's a common thing. Look, let's talk about this list. So you came up with this list. Can you briefly? I'm going to let these names play a little bit, but are you able to see the names on the screen?
Yeah, I can see them.
Mubin Shaikh. What's the story with that one?
Mubin Shaikh is a Canadian Muslim. He is very proud of himself because he supposedly had a role in stopping a jihad attack a few years ago. Knowing what I know about Mubin, I'm skeptical about that because he and I debated a few years back. You can see the debate on YouTube, and he's a typical Islamic apologist dissembling about the violent passages in the Quran, trying to fool people. The big problem that Islamic apologists like Mubin Shaikh and all the rest of them have is, okay, you're convincing the infidels that Islam is peace. What are you doing to convince your fellow Muslims that Islam is peace?
All right.
Anyway, the thing about it is, not long before we filmed Islamicize Me, or these sections of it, Mubin Shaikh was on Twitter railing at me and saying that he would debate me again. And I said, sure, great, when? Which I always say when Muslims say they'll debate me unless they're, total guys with one follower on Twitter or something like that are just some guy sitting in their mom's basement. But in any case, I said, sure, Mubin, I'll debate you. And he immediately blocked me and ran away. So that was that. And really, it's pretty much the same with all of these guys. They are all various Muslims who have challenged me to debate. That includes Asghar Bukhari, Ayman Ismail, Joseph Lombard. And they then backed out when I started to say, okay, let's nail down the details. Where is this going to be? When? And then there are others who have attacked me in various public forums, and I have challenged them to debate as a result. And then they have refused. Reza Aslan, Mehdi Hassan is among them. Akbar Ahmed is a very well-respected professor at American University. And many years ago, I was on C-SPAN, was interviewed on C-SPAN, and then C-SPAN did a very strange thing. I call it my pre-refuted interview, because before my interview ran, C-SPAN interviewed Akbar Ahmed, and the C-SPAN guy showed my video of me talking and then had Akbar Ahmed explain how, oh, this is all wrong and Islam is nothing like that and it's all peaceful and so on. And so, of course, I never got a chance to discuss these things with Akbar Ahmed. He was just dealing with me on the screen.
Right.
And the thing about that is that in the course of it, he said, oh, yes, we always discuss things with people like Mr. Spencer. We discuss, we debate, we explain. So I contacted him and said, okay, let's discuss and debate. Of course, never heard from him. And it's pretty much the same with all of these guys. Various ones of them on the list, including Haris Zafar and Syed Soharwardi. They have challenged me to debate. Jonathan Brown agreed to, Jonathan Brown actually was just insulting and abusive after attacking me, and I offered to debate him, and he was more insulting and abusive. But it was Zafar and Soharwardi said, yes, I want to debate Spencer. They ran as well once it came down to taking the challenge in making it real. Ahmed Afzal is a professor at some university, I think in Connecticut somewhere. I spoke there many years ago. And he then wrote somewhere about how what I had said was all wrong. And I said, great, how about we have a public discussion of this, public debate about it. And I'll even come to your class at my own expense and we can do it there. And he said, oh, you can come to my class, but it would be as a student. So, it's all these guys, they're always beating their chests and bragging about how they would destroy me in debate, but none of them ever have the courage to really try. And
so that's what we do with Sam's Sheikh character talking all that trash. and then you show up and he's afraid. And then when you try to nail down the details, we make a satirical version of that by, he's obviously being evasive to say the least, but we try to play it up for comedic effect. Oh, by the way, David's in the chat and he remembers the other line. He says you were going to say, and I remember this, it was improv by you, by the way. You're the one who came up with those lines. It was, if we agreed to the KFC debate, you were maybe going to say, but I should probably stick with the salad.
Oh, I should have said that.
But the Chick-fil-A shout out was good though. Everyone appreciates that,
Yes.
But I should probably stick with the salad. It was a good line.
It is a good line. It would have worked perfect there too, but well, we'll have to do it in the remake.
Right. That's good. I'm glad. Hey, David, thanks. Shout out to that. I'm glad you remembered. I'm glad you shared that. That's good. Okay, we've got someone in the super chat. So I've got to read this comment real quick from Dana L. She says, love the work. Keep up the heat. And then says that Obama's FBI tried to use jihadis to murder Spencer Geller. Many left hates the Texas is very serious. She seems to believe that the FBI was partially behind the attack in Garland. I've never heard that theory before.
You haven't? I've been saying that for a couple of years, Vocab.
Really?
I firmly believe the FBI wanted us dead. I know it sounds crazy, but I think all this news that's coming out now about the corruption of the FBI, it corroborates that the FBI is indeed deeply corrupt. And if they're deeply corrupt and all that, why not? What happened was this. There was an undercover FBI agent behind Elton Simpson and Nadir Sufi when they drove into the parking lot of our event. He was in the car behind them.
Wait, seriously?
Yes. And he was texting them. And one of the things he texted to them was, tear up Texas. So he's encouraging them to come and kill us. And he's right behind them. Now, this indicates to me that the FBI knew there was going to be an attack on our event. Obviously, because they had the undercover agent there and he's following the guys into the parking lot. Now, he has actually testified in a related trial and he lied through his teeth. And he said he didn't know that it was Simpson and Sufi in the car ahead of him. Now, I challenge him. I hope he's watching this or will watch it because I'm challenging him and saying that's a lie. And I'll tell you why I think it's a lie. Let me ask you this, Vocab. If you were an FBI agent and you're in touch with two guys from Phoenix and they're talking about going to an event in the Dallas suburbs, driving 8 hours from Phoenix, and they're going to kill people there. And so you are at the event in Texas, and you're going into the parking lot behind a car with two young men in it with Arizona plates. You're not going to put it together? It seems ridiculous to me on the face of it.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously seems like he would know.
Yeah, but there's more. The thing about it is this: if you were the FBI and you knew there was going to be an attack, wouldn't you have 100 guys there to make sure that nobody got hurt and that the jihadis got taken out? But all they had was this undercover agent, and he's encouraging them. So, yeah, I stand by it. I think the FBI wanted to kill us. This was the Obama FBI, the Comey FBI, and the idea probably was Obama said the future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam. He wanted an illustration of that this is what happens if you do this, you better not get out of line.
See, it's weird because I remember the other times I interviewed you, you had a lot of different facts and different things you would tell. And when I went back for the interview we did on Facebook Live, I uploaded it on YouTube. And by the way, I'm going to put a link to that, everybody, in this video. The other times I interviewed Robert. And anyways, I would go to look for like a picture or a video or something like that whenever you would bring up an event, a terrorist attack that had happened that I had never heard of or something like that. And I would always think, this sounds fantastical. Maybe he got his information wrong. Like maybe he's got some information wrong on this one or that one. And every time I would go to look more into it, to find the picture, to look at the story or find a link or something like that, every time it was almost gloomy. All of your facts and information were correct. And I said, oh man, everything this guy is saying, every time I look at it, it's true. And it's almost kind of depressing.
I know what you mean. I do this every day. I know what you mean, but it is what it is. We have to deal with reality.
Is there some way people could find out more about like the information you said about the FBI following them and stuff? Where is that information publicly available?
Yeah, it was in the. We found out about that from two sources long after the event. The Daily Beast did an expose, and then 60 Minutes did a story. And both of those, I don't know if the 60 Minutes story is online, but I wrote about it a lot at the time. I wrote an article at Front Page. I believe the title is "Did the FBI Want Pamela Geller and Me Dead?" Something like that. And I cite both of the sources in there that gave us the information. Also, I should say, I see people asking, why don't you sue the FBI? The jihadis and the Islamic advocacy groups will tell you that I'm rich, but unfortunately it's not true. And I don't know, I don't have lawyers who can do that kind of thing. If you know of any, please send them to me. But in any case, we have asked the FBI repeatedly to give us information about what happened there, and they've completely ignored our requests.
Oh, man. This is, again, depressing in a way. Yeah, okay. Well, Dana L. in the Super Chat also says that David Wood's 3 stages of jihad needs to be counterterrorism training.
Yeah, counterterrorism training is still the Obama counterterrorism training, which is countering violent extremism, which never mentions Islam or jihad in connection with terrorism.
Yeah, okay. Well, people in the chat are also speaking about what you spoke on. And I don't know, sometimes you just hope things aren't true, but
it is, unfortunately.
By the way, hey, Casa Marine has a good idea. Everybody be sure to hit the like button there. And like I said, when the interview is over here, I'm going to share those other interviews that I did with Robert. We're going to finish watching this episode, then we're going to go on to the last one, and that will be the end there. Oh, okay. Oops, I just lost our okay. I got it right here. Okay, so here's where you put your phone away because you basically can tell he's not serious. And watch what happens, everybody.
Yeah, all this time I'm using my special book. Then what was I using for all this time? Astaghfirullah. But you know what? I will accept your challenge after Ramadan because right now I'm in fasting. You're just making excuses. So what about
What's funny about that, Robert, is when we filmed that, we didn't know we were going to be showing this during Ramadan. Later on, we thought of that idea. That's just funny that he says that,
That's a beautiful Three Stooges take he just made. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that. That was funny. I'm going to replay that. That was good.
He looked like Curly there for a minute.
Totally.
Look, I'll tell you what. If you ever get the courage to debate.
That's Curly, man.
Like, yeah.
I'll minorize you.
Yeah, I'm murder-wise you. Play it in slow motion. That's funny. That is funny. So this was funny the way you did this. You look away. He's like, how will I find you? Just say my name, Robert Spencer. It's just the whole thing is just so dramatic. It's fun.
Then you'll know where to find me. How will I find an ugly-looking kafir like you? All you have to do is say my name. And I'll be there.
I think it was David, if I'm not mistaken, that had the amazing idea of once you teleported out, that immediately the sheikh would say, look how he ran away.
Oh, yeah, that was beautiful. Because actually, Shabir Ali, talking about those Muslims who have ducked debate with me, Shabir Ali is one who does that. I was
really
to debate him a few years back in Toronto, and the event was abruptly canceled. And Shabir Ali goes around saying, I canceled it because I was scared to debate him. And as a matter of fact, a friend of ours that a lot of us will know, Nadir Ahmed, who I have debated, a real bad debater, he contacted me the other day and said he wanted to debate again. And I said, Nadir, you had your chance. I'm not playing with you anymore. You're really, to be honest with you, you're one of the worst debaters I've ever encountered, and I'm not going to waste my time again. And he said, okay, how about you debate Shabir Ali? And I said, okay, sure. I'd be happy to. He canceled, or somebody canceled the last time, and now he claims that I canceled. You tell him I'm ready whenever and wherever he is. And Nadir wrote back saying, okay, I'll get back to you right away. And that was about a week ago. I haven't heard from him. I'm not going to hear from him. But he can go around saying I ran away anyway.
Right. Well, Nadir, actually, it's funny you bring up Nadir. He's one of the first Muslim apologists to make a little video about the series. And I don't know if everyone's seen it, but basically Nadir says this series is evidence that they are losing, because when you resort to this type of mockery, basically is what he's saying, it's evidence you're losing. And he says they've lost because if you notice, I've debated, Nadir said, almost everyone involved with the project, and I beat them all. You can go watch it yourself.
Yeah, he claims he beat me in debate. I remember we debated about the slave girls in, Muhammad's sex slaves and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept saying that they consented to sex with Muhammad. And I kept saying, come on, you're talking about slaves. The very idea of what a slave is that their consent is not required and is never sought. And so,
right.
Yeah, he beat me in debate. Yeah, he can keep telling himself that.
Yeah, because he's been contacted me through Google Voice and Google Chat a number of times through the series. And he says, Vocab, I want you to know that we have really good answers to all of these questions. All these questions have been answered, and you just need to give us a chance. And so I would bring up some things on the phone, because I've talked to him on the phone, and he would say, yeah, there's really good answers for that. And I said, well, could you share some of these answers? So he made this video, and in the video he says, oh, when I was talking to Vocab, I told him there's really good answers, but he didn't care because David Wood has corrupted his mind. And this is simply not true. I was asking him on the phone if he could share some of these amazing answers and responses. He just was kind of giving me an IOU, those great responses. But here's the thing. Some of the responses I've seen already are not so great. There's a Muslim apologist going around online sharing this Smithsonian article that says that some insect wings have healing properties in them. Now,
people will go to any lengths. Yep, it's incredible.
Yeah. Now this first
Vocab. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just
okay.
saw a really funny thing that David said in the chat. The last time I debated Nadir, a pastor came up to me afterward and said, it was like you were clubbing a baby seal out there.
That's pretty funny. Oh my goodness. That's pretty funny. Oh, by the way, John McCrae is in the chat, and this is his secret vlog where he voices his doubts due to Rich White's comments. And shout out to John McCrae. What do you mean? Shout out to you, bro. And you did great on this. And this was a good vlog as well. So
I thought the Rich White thing was funny because I am so often confused with the Nazi Richard Spencer. They called James White Rich White. I thought it was a nice touch wherever it came from.
That was David. That was David.
Genius.
Yeah, that was it. And then John pulled it off really well, the way he kind of played it out.
Yes.
He did well on it. I mean, again, I hope people have a sense of humor, because this is not mean-spirited ribbing. That's not our intent. This is like good-natured ribbing, but to prove a point and incorporate it into a bigger project. So anyways, let's see how much time. This vlog is almost over. Then we're going to do day 30. Then that will be it. So I can see that you're looking in the chat. If you find anything particular, Robert, that you want to answer or you would like to look at, that is, you feel more than free to do that anytime something catches your eye. But with that, I'm thinking of going on the last day where you make a brief cameo.
Yes, a Breaking Bad inspired.
So everyone, as promised, here's the commentary for day 30, the last official episode of Islamicize Me, called The End of the Halal Heroes. Robert Spencer and Vocab Malone at your service. Now, just so everyone knows, there is an epilogue. So there's kind of what you might call, just like in the Marvel movies, there's you wait after the credits and there's something else. We do have that coming out today is the plan. So there is one other thing.
It is Fudge time.
I tell you, Vocab, I thought.
Go ahead.
Maybe the most brilliant of all. And the way that the whole thing got tied up and resolved was just stunning. And hats off again to all of you and to David for putting it together. There's the what I was talking about before, that every morning when you greet them, they get more fervent and frenzied, and especially in this.
Day to day after prayer.
That's like the main one right there.
Yes.
list real quick of our.
So here's our shopping list, which includes killing you. I mentioned it casually as the third item among 4.
We need to buy some more prayer
We need
beads.
some more prayer beads.
It looks like we need to read Surah 9 again.
We need to read Surah 9 again.
Gotta read Surah 9.
We have to kill Robert
And
Spencer.
lastly, we ran out of Islamic toothbrushes.
And we ran out of
Let's hurry up,
toothbrushes.
We got a lot to do today.
So
There are some pretty
Yeah,
major
that's,
issues
did you
that
see
go
that? What's really terrific about that right there is that you get David and John going nuts with the Allahu Akbar, and then immediately you see James White looking kind of dubious, as if he were watching them.
right, you're watching them. Yes, and yeah, there's some funny stuff there. Oh, look at this. Someone's sharing something from the Reliance of the Traveler. Darso M says, this is from Reliance of the Traveler. It's kind of an Islamic legal text. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it says, if the bride is a virgin, the father or grandpa may marry her to someone without her permission. A virgin's silence is considered as permission. I think that's a reference to maybe the sex slaves earlier, perhaps. So this is the last day. People love this. And the cool thing about this is the way it was wrapped up was surprising. A lot of people thought we were going to deconvert, or we were going to kill ourselves, or we were going to kill you, or we were going to actually blow ourselves up. But it was much different than all that. So I do like the way it wrapped up as well. I concur.
And John showed off his chops again, his acting skills with
I know.
The operator at the suicide hotline.
Yeah, I think that was a funny gag to have us misunderstanding, suicide. And so what we did is we looked up a text, like that was kind of like a training manual or template that they would give to operators who run suicide hotline. And then we wrote purposely vague dialogue, ambiguous enough to be misunderstood by both parties. It worked out pretty well.
Yes.
It was, yeah, and John does a great job as Chad.
Yes.
Chad.
Terrific. This is also great too, when David wraps this up by noting that Muhammad said that women are deficient in intelligence.
Yeah.
Islamic texts that are referenced in this. That it's brilliant because people don't realize these things are in the text, and of course that's the whole point.
Yeah, so here we are trying to build. Notice he has the camel pee back out.
Yes, I saw him swinging it and looking sick.
Yeah. He didn't take a drink. He didn't end up doing it.
I think he takes one after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone notices, but if you look closely on my left side of my vest, I have a timer on. I don't know if everyone catches that. And John has a little battery tucked away in his dynamite pack. It's actually the battery to this phone.
Huh.
So we just have all this stuff. We have another pair of scissors. There's a lighter. Like I was going to light it. I don't know if everyone, I was getting ahead of myself. I was going to light it to test it. But anyways, so do you think this scene will get this series in trouble?
Through the YouTube censors?
Yeah.
You never know about them. I think a lot of that is automated. There, he took a drink then, I think. Anyway, a lot of that is just bots. And of course, the whole idea of this censorship is also skewed and far to the left, with many, many things being censored that are simply dissenting from the left's agenda. I mean, anybody who looks at this and thinks you guys are actual jihadis would have to be a real idiot. But there's so many real idiots, and I'm sure many of them work at YouTube. You never know.
You notice how the operator was reading Joel Osteen's book? That's actually the second slam on Joel Osteen. Yes. I don't know if you remember, but when he was Shiite, we were torturing him. Remember that?
Yep. When you found out he was Shiite.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It made him watch Joel Osteen with Oprah.
Yeah. Oh man, that's funny. I love that part. And then he also has a Kevin from Home Alone shirt on, everybody. That's what that shirt is he's wearing.
My goodness.
Oh, this nip it in the bud. I've got some behind the scenes footage. Do you know what that's from, Robert? The nip it.
Yeah, that's the old Andy Griffith show, right?
Yep, you got it. So John didn't know what that was, so we had to explain it to him.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he was probably born way after that.
Yeah, so he had no idea. Make the right connections.
Yes. Here it goes.
Anyway, this was all brilliant because, of course, there have been jihadi work accidents where they blow themselves up with their own bombs.
Yeah.
And many, many stories like that. I recently had a story at Jihad Watch of an imam who blew himself up in the mosque.
Really?
Yep. And I think, how many times have you heard about pastors in churches blowing themselves up making a bomb? And yet people will still say, oh, all religions have their extremists.
Was this recent? This story?
Yeah.
Where was it? Where did it take place?
Afghanistan.
Oh wow.
But in the mosque.
So
This was very good. This is very well done because it looks like a real jihad video.
yes, can you talk a little bit about that?
Flag in the back.
Yes.
And the Quran, the knives. It's very well done, really. The Quran and the sword. I have a whole lot of pictures of actual jihadis with their faces covered in the same way and holding up the Quran in one hand and the sword in the other. Of course, in this case, you have David with the Quran and John with the sword, but it's very much based on reality.
It's funny if you notice John's character, he's holding the sword on the narrow side, not the broad side, in the palm of his hand.
Yeah, I see that now. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to try to see if we can hear this audio. I want to show everyone something. Okay, everyone listen real close. I got to break this one little part down. So the gag was David had this idea, which is brilliant, to ruin the solemnness of the scene because it's very dark and somber. We're making our final pronouncement, like Robert mentioned, like the folks really do before they do something, and ruin it with something comical happening, which is the mask suffocates him. But even though John knew all that, John breaks character when Dennis's character says, I can't breathe, and falls out and talks in his normal voice. He thought the scene was over. He thought David was serious. And John says, I can't breathe in this thing either. Good Lord. So we just kept it. But if you notice, that's actually John saying that for real. It's kind of funny. We just continued on with the scene because it was such a good take. But listen carefully, everyone. You'll be able to hear it. Go back and rewatch it. It's pretty funny. I can't breathe in this either. Good Lord. It's really funny. And he's about to take his mask off and he still realizes we're still in character.
The fire. Oh.
It works very well.
Yeah.
It looks as if he's given way to his doubts there for a second, and he thinks, well, I better stick to the jihad here because these guys are with me.
And we had a little mattress down there, everybody, just so you know, a little mattress that caught his fall, but he really did fall. But there's just a mattress there. We barely had room in my kitchen to pull this off. I like the silence of this scene.
Beautiful. Very well done.
So should we go kill Robert Spencer by ourselves?
Mission.
30
days ago.
All right, I'm going to look real quick through some comments here, Robert. Here comes your cameo up a little bit. Someone notes how we look completely different from day zero. Built for speed. Zworster says that was quite a moment of silence. Oh, what do you think? What do you think of the irony that we had a Jewish doctor?
Well, I
don't know
thought
if you caught that.
That was very clever, really, and it was a good stroke to do that because you have, for example, Israel giving electricity to Gaza and all sorts of offering them humanitarian aid recently and being refused by Hamas. And so it's characteristic that you would have a Jewish doctor who's trying to heal somebody who would actually try to kill him.
Yeah, and here's the flashbacks.
Very backwards in its orientation. And of course, to Westerners, much of this will strike us as absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane.
The repeat there is another master stroke.
Yeah, here's an example of it. That's why you should submerge the fly in your food. I suppose a person that would go that far is then worthy of being mocked, worthy of being mocked, worthy of being mocked.
Frankly, I think how you're alive right now.
What's my name?
Do you like, there's your main cameo. You said that "what's my name" in front of the green scene like a whole bunch of times, if I remember correctly.
Yes, they wanted to get it exactly one way. I guess like the Breaking Bad guy.
Yeah, it's
What's my name?
How you're alive right now.
you're front of the Kaaba there.
A lot of fun.
Alonzo's testing us, man.
It's just so insane because he's throwing up while he's yelling. It's just insane.
Yes, but it's really a wonderful ending to the whole thing. That even by the lights of what they are going by, I mean, even by the Islamic texts, they have a way that leads them out. And that's just another brilliant stroke. I mean, I always thought that it's just another contemptible thing in the Islamic texts that you have in the Islamic texts permission to break the oaths that you take. But it was brilliant of David to turn that into permission for you guys to get out of Islam. Very, very impressive ending.
By the way, so John and David are in the chat, and it is true that day in real life, David was super, 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 super sick, maybe sicker than I've ever seen anyone. And so that's why John was worried about him. Yes, that is true. I didn't forget. I remember, guys. In fact,
wait a minute. Vocab, was that the day that, I mean, I remember there was a day when I was there that we did the mosque scene and we waited. I was in there arguing theology with Sam.
Yeah.
While you guys were in there for hours.
Yeah.
I was thinking that you did all the hospital scenes. But was that the same day? Because if it was, I didn't realize David was sick at all.
I don't know if that was the same day. I don't remember, but his main bout of sickness was actually at my house. And
So you did hospital scenes on another day as well.
I don't even, you know what? I'm losing track, Robert. I bet David would know. I don't remember. But David was sick a number of times throughout this. Really, really, really bad. And in fact,
camel urine?
Yeah, I got some of it on video. And I was like, David, this throwing up you're doing is so violent and crazy. We should use this for the real sounds because this is insane. You know, you're real throwing up because it was pretty intense.
Wow, that's interesting. That's very interesting. It makes me wonder if there was, well, it's, you know, these, I don't know if these things happen by accident, that maybe there was something spiritual about that.
Yeah, it was definitely intense, brother. It was definitely intense. So here we come to the realization. Muhammad said, if you find something better, you can break your oaths. And so then we say, well, okay, what's better than not following the teachings of Muhammad? We say, or what's better than following the teachings of Muhammad? Not following the teachings of Muhammad. And then we almost say Allahu Akbar there, but then we slow down with it.
That was beautiful too, how you stopped the Allahu Akbar all at one, all in the same, in sync.
And now this is at the end where we kind of realize what we've done, and now we're ex-Muslims basically.
You've already shaved.
Yep, and no kufis on now.
Yes.
And yeah, it was a great way to end it. I do agree. Oh man, it really worked. It really worked well. And David David says no. This was after I came back a week later. I hadn't gotten more than 1 to 3 hours of sleep for like 10 days straight. It finally caught up with me and I got crazy sick. Oh, so we should read this.
Yeah, this I thought was extraordinary in every way. But so go ahead.
Islamicize Me was inspired by the true story of Elton Simpson, Nadir Sufi, and Dakaris Thomas, who plotted to kill Robert Spencer, Pamela Geller, and many others over a Draw Muhammad cartoon contest. So, would you like to talk a little bit about that? Or
I've
you
already said a good deal about it. I don't know what else, Vocab. It was a real nice evening until they started shooting. We had a great event.
Simpson and Sufi were killed during the attack.
Now, this Vocab, this struck me. This was amazing. How you see Simpson and Sufi. It's Simpson on the right. And then in a minute, you're going to see David and John, and they look so much like Simpson and Sufi. It's very, very striking.
You know what's bizarre about that? I was just talking to David today. Again, we didn't plan it. David just wanted to get some pictures of them. And then when he brought the pictures up, he said, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That kind of looks like us.
Yeah. Show it. It's extraordinary.
Yeah. That's wild. I mean, there's more resemblance than some of those Hollywood movies when they show the real person at the end.
Yeah, you could have a movie about Garland and the attacks, and David and John could play them.
Yeah, I think that really freaked people out when they saw that.
Yes. I was amazed by it this morning when I saw this.
David was really, really hoping the third guy looked like me, but alas. Alas. Darso M is in the super chat and says, God bless you all for all the work you are doing in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you very much, Darso. Shout out back to you. But this was kind of chilling, wasn't it?
Yes, very much so. It's really amazing to me. Seeing pictures like that.
Oh, can you say something briefly about this? I'm sure you've heard that this has been in the news recently.
Yeah, I'm not sure what there is to say about it, except that there are a number of people who were involved in this plot. It wasn't just Thomas. One thing that was, I forget the guy's first name, Hendricks in North Carolina. And he's one who was involved very deeply with the undercover agent and was asking an undercover agent who apparently was in the event. There were apparently two. And one of them, the other one was, Hendricks in North Carolina is asking him, what's the security arrangements that they've got? How many people are there? All these specific details. And it's noteworthy that the FBI in Hendricks' trial, they released the questions, but never the answers.
Really?
And I think they don't want to know how much the FBI was complicit in this. They don't want people to realize that.
Wait a minute.
I can't think of any other explanation why they wouldn't release the answers.
Who is Hendricks? He was involved with this?
Potter, yeah, he was in North Carolina. He did not come to the event, but he was involved with the plotting all the way up through. And he was communicating with an FBI agent who was in the hall and asking him about our security arrangements. And
so you guys had an FBI agent that was in attendance at the event?
Yeah, apparently, because that's who Hendricks was communicating with. He may have been, it may be that the FBI agent that's meant is the dope who was following Simpson and Sufi in his car, but he wouldn't know about the arrangements that we had because he wasn't inside. The guy, the questions that were asked would have to have been asked of somebody inside. But see, I'm just surmising from all this because the FBI has not given us any info. But we did have very high security arrangements that we ourselves hired and paid for. And they're the ones who took out Simpson and Sufi. But the FBI, who knew about this, did nothing to protect the people who were there.
Wow. The hearing some more of the background is just shocking. Wow. You did a lot of interviews after that attempt, didn't you?
Yeah, mostly it was Pamela. Mostly Pamela Geller was on. She was on all the shows, and they were all blaming her. It was incredible. Nobody seemed to realize that what we were trying to do was stand up to violent intimidation, that the jihadis had killed the Mohammed cartoonists of Charlie Hebdo in Paris that January 2015. And so we were showing, we're not going to let you say you're going to kill us or even kill us, and then you'll get what you want. We're not going to give in to bullying because that only encourages more bullying.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody seems to get that. And so I had all this trouble with the church I was involved in at the time And a lot of people, Christians, were telling me, oh, this is a terrible thing. Like, you know, James White, you must not insult Muhammad, and so on. And the thing is that nobody seemed to grasp what this was really about. That if you give in to somebody who says he's going to kill you, he's going to realize he can get more from you by saying he's going to kill you again, until he finally makes you entirely his slave or entirely at his service. And you're just giving in to everything he wants because you're afraid he's going to kill you. So we were standing up to that. And Pamela Geller was lambasted on all the shows, people who should have known better, like Bill O'Reilly and Laura Ingraham, laying into her, as well as CNN and others. It was really a shameful display.
Wow. Yeah, man.
They should have been saying, you know, you're a hero for standing up for the freedom of speech and for standing up to violent intimidation so that our children don't have to live being bullied by these people who know now that they can get whatever they want from us by bullying. But instead, it was just reinforced.
Yeah, it's intense stuff. Man, it's a lot to take in. That's why Islamicize Me had to have a comedic touch, because of all these types of facts and information. Again, everybody, John McCrae of What Do You Mean is in the chat. Make sure you're subscribed to his channel. I know a lot of you are, but make sure. He just dropped a new video today. He's just constantly puts out fantastic material. I've never seen anyone in my life that I'm aware of so subscriber count go up so fast. He's worked really hard and deserves all the subscribers he has. I've learned a lot from him. So shout out to John McCrae. What Do You Mean? And of course, David Wood, Act 17 Apologetics. You see him there. And both of those men have Patreon accounts. I do as well. Robert Spencer, do you have a Patreon account? So people want to get
I need to set that up. It's one of those things I got to do, but I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm at Jihad Watch Video on YouTube, jihadwatch.org online, Jihad Watch RS on Twitter, Jihad Watch on Facebook.
All right, excellent. I'm going to get to a few questions, and then we'll wind this down. Blackbeard wants to know, what was the stuff John spit into the bucket? That was soup. That was soup. So we bought a bunch of soup. You put it in your mouth. It looks like throw up, everybody. Blackbeard mentioned. You know, that was one thing. Let me briefly say, some of the people who were criticizing Islamicize Me were complaining about projectile vomiting. And to be honest, I never understood that complaint, because some of the things I could understand why people would have a problem with, but I never understood what is unchristian or past how do you cross the line by showing fake projectile vomiting? I never actually really understood that. I mean, it's just, I didn't understand how that was a violation of scripture. I guess I'll say that.
Yeah, a lot of the people who are saying this is coarse jesting, and St. Paul said don't engage in coarse jesting, I think they're not realizing Islamicize Me has a very serious point. And that is to show Muslims that a lot of what they believe is ridiculous and evil and is leading them down the wrong path. And that is a very important point. And so the idea that that is somehow violating what Paul said about coarse jesting, I think misunderstands Paul and misunderstands Islamicize Me. Paul is talking about, you know, stop kidding around, be serious about your life, be serious about what you're doing in terms of preaching the gospel, and don't just fritter away your time being silly. Okay, that's exactly what you guys were doing in this series. You were telling the truth, exposing truths that very few people know, and trying to help people to get out of an ideology that leads them to do evil. What on earth is, how anybody could object to that is beyond me, or think that it has anything to do with what St. Paul said about coarse jesting.
Well, hey, good news for you. David Wood says, tell Robert we'll set up his Patreon account when I come up to record some more videos.
Okay, come on anytime, as long as I'm in town.
That's awesome. Carm wants to ask you if you always feel like you're looking over your shoulder, Robert.
No, I never look over my shoulder. I probably should more. But, you know, the sage philosopher Jocelyn Elders, you probably don't remember her. She was the Surgeon General for Bill Clinton. And she once said, everybody's probably going to die from something. And I think, you know, you got a point there, Dr. Elders. If it ain't this, it's going to be that. And so I'm just not worried about it.
All right. Well, I'm sure people might be surprised to hear that. Let me see. Tired of Bull is asking, did they ever repent, or are they now radicalizing the prison population? The answer to that, unfortunately, is two of the men. Well, it's good they didn't kill anyone else, but two of the men who attacked, actually, they were killed there.
Yeah, the 2 actual attackers were killed at the scene by our security team that we hired. And Hendricks, that I mentioned before, is in prison. Abdul Malik Abdul Kareem, who is another plotter, is in prison. Decorous Thomas is in prison. To the best of my knowledge, none of them have repented. They're all still Muslims. And of course, our prison system thinks of Islam as a religion of peace. And so they actually encourage the observance of Islam, which is just crazy for somebody like Abdul Malik Abdul Kareem or Decorous Thomas, because they're in prison because of Islam. They're in prison because they were acting upon the tenets and teachings of Islam. And so allowing them to continue to deepen their commitment to Islam, it would be like catching some Nazis in World War II and giving them copies of Mein Kampf and letting them hold Nazi study groups in prison. It's ridiculous, but that's the situation.
Yeah, seriously. G Consciousness with the super chat says grace and peace, brothers and sisters. Shout out to you, G Consciousness. Thanks a lot, LaRon, for everything you do. Seriously. Greg, I believe, was the name. I lost the question here, but asked, how much did you know about these 3 before you begin writing Islamicize Me? Well, Greg, I'm not acting like I was best friends with Elton, who I knew was Ibrahim, but I did have a half a dozen long, intense conversations with him, both at a job that we were at and also actually at his mosque, because I was witnessing at the mosque every Friday at the time. And he was one of the main people who would work hard to make sure that no one would listen to us. So Elton and I were friendly opponents, but also we were friendly opponents. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a thing where he threatened me. One example I'll give briefly was we were passing out Gospels of John that were in Arabic on one side and English on the other. And that day was actually quite successful. Sometimes we would not get more than 4 people to take them. For whatever reason, this day we had managed to get 20, maybe 30 out to the people. And it was a very successful day of getting a lot of these. When I say there, Muslims are coming out of the mosque. We're on the public sidewalk and we would give them one if they would take it. Well, Elton saw what was happening and with great speed managed to go to anyone he saw who had a copy of the Gospel of John we had given. He would have a brief conversation with him. Now, I couldn't interact with him because he would be in the parking lot and we weren't allowed in their parking lot. But he would speak briefly to them, and then almost all of them I saw then would hand the book over to him. So he was going around quickly doing this before they would get in their car. And then he had collected a stack like this of Gospels of John, and he looked over at me and smiled like this, kind of a charming, knowing smile, and then went and walked slowly and methodically over to the dumpster behind him and then dumped them all in there and looked back at me and smiled. Now, it wasn't done with, he wasn't like threatening me or anything, but he was just like, hey, this is what you're doing. This is what I'm going to do. And then the funny thing is, then when we were leaving, I happened to see him at the stoplight when we were in our car, and I rolled down my window and we started to have a conversation at the stoplight as well. And to the point where we actually missed when the light turned green, and we actually caused an accident, believe it or not, because the car that didn't go, that was supposed to go beside him, because, sometimes people wait, and someone hit them in the back because we didn't go in time because I was talking to Elton Simpson with my window rolled down. Anyways, Greg, my point is that we didn't know everything about them, but I knew one of the guys personally. I mean, and of course, Robert studies jihadis and so knew a lot of the technical details that you could tell that I didn't know. I don't know if you want to say anything else about that.
Me? Yeah, well, I wasn't surprised by anything in the show. I'm aware of all these passages. And like I said earlier, there are many, many more. This could have been 100 episodes, and you wouldn't exhaust all the astonishingly weird and crazy things that are in the Hadith.
Right. And then someone wants to ask you about what they're calling the infiltration of Islam into the Latino community. I don't know if you know anything about that or if you can say anything about that.
That's been going on for years. And periodically you see big articles about it in the mainstream press. Like the Christian Science Monitor had a piece a few years ago, and there have been others I've seen. Particularly, they focus on women. And they have Latino women saying that they weren't respected by Latino men, but they found respect among Muslim men. And I think, this is just such transparent apologetics, and it's the only Sorry, I just saw David in the chat saying, does everyone see how Vocab laughs about causing an accident? He's clearly a psychopath.
It was a minor accident. It was a fender bender.
Look, there are concerted efforts to convert people in Latin America to Islam. And there is active Hezbollah activity in Mexico and in South America, especially in the Triple Frontier region, as well as in Venezuela. And so that's something we're going to be hearing about in a negative way for quite some time.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Diana, follower of Christ, in the super chat and says, Robert, what got you started to speak against Islam? This will be one of the last questions we're going to take, but go ahead, brother.
Yeah, one thing led to another. You know, you never know where you're going to end up. My family is from the Ottoman Empire, the last caliphate, unless you count ISIS. And my grandparents were exiled from that empire. They were Orthodox Christians. They were invited to convert to Islam, and they refused. So they were exiled. And on the way out, my great-grandfather was actually murdered by a Turkish soldier. Now, when I knew my grandparents, they were very nice, kind, old folks. And I would ask them about where they grew up, and they would tell me how wonderful it was and what a great place it was. And then I would say, oh, why are you here then? And they would say, well, we got exiled. And this was a big thing that didn't fit for me. And so I started to try to figure out what exactly happened there. And that led me into the study of Islam. Then this is all back in the 80s and before that. And then as time went by, of course, because of the Iranian Revolution and some of the things that happened in the 90s with the USS Cole and the Khobar Towers, things like that, it started to be a thing that people wanted to know about Islam. And I was in a position to, because I was consulting with some various groups then, in a position to provide the information. And so I did. And then right after 9/11, I was asked by one of the people I was consulting for to write a book about it. And so here I am. One thing leads to another, and there you are.
All right, so maybe this will be one of the last questions. This is interesting. Christopher asks, with the loss of territory in Raqqa and Mosul, where is ISIS currently looking to establish the headquarters of their caliphate? I don't know if that's something you would know, but...
No, I don't know that anybody knows. They haven't announced that they're going to put it X, Y, or Y. They have a presence still in Syria and Iraq, although it's substantially diminished. They also have a presence in Libya. And there are actually other groups that pledged allegiance to ISIS several years ago when they were really going strong and controlled a territory larger than Great Britain. And now, of course, Boko Haram and Abu Sayyaf in the Philippines, Boko Haram in Nigeria, I don't think they're probably keeping up their allegiance to ISIS, but it's conceivable that they could land in one of those areas and that perhaps the effort to establish an enclave in the Philippines not long ago, which failed, was an attempt to set up their base there. In any case, we have not seen the last of ISIS. They have vowed to, the jihadis are dispersed all over, and they've vowed repeatedly to commit attacks in the West. So we'll be hearing more from them.
All right, well, thank you with that. And
no, I never wear anything but suits, not even to the beach.
Yeah, a lot of people actually said that they were glad they got to see you in a series like this because you generally have to be sort of serious, and I don't know if you want to use the word combative, but you have to be in a certain mode in a lot of media appearances. And they were glad to see you do something like this. They're like, it's funny because Robert's like that, you know, with these serious topics, and then you guys get him in a series where all he's doing is laughing. So
it was a lot of fun. And I tell you, one day I had a lot of time. You guys were off doing something else, and I took a walk out into the city and came back and ran into you. And I was wearing this very loud Hawaiian shirt. And David said, this is the first time I've seen you outside of a suit. And luckily, no photographs were taken.
Yeah, right. Right. I think that the Hawaiian shirt might have been haram.
Yes, very much so.
A Syrian release says, my ancestors are from the same as Spencer. And then we got John McCrae, what do you mean, who's trying to see, we've got a pretty good little kind of social media community brewing here. And sometimes people are trying to do matchmaker in here. And it looks like John McCrae's trying to do matchmaker, I think with me up in here, telling people to sneak into my DMs. John McCrae's going to get me in trouble. But Robert Spencer's taken. Say what?
I hope you invite me to the wedding.
Oh, yeah. Robert Spencer's taken, everybody, just in case anyone's asking. Don't be sneaking up in Robert Spencer's DMs. Hey, Tippy Bear says Robert Spencer was born in a suit.
Yes, that's right. And I
And
saw
then-
David say I sleep in a suit. He was right as well.
Someone you may know says no pics, so it didn't happen.
That's right. Correct. There was no Hawaiian shirt.
Avenue
wasn't
Christus Rex says that Robert's laugh can cure illness.
Oh, that would be nice. But you know, they do say that laughter and smiling, it is good for you.
Oh man, these are there's some funny comments. We got some funny people in here. Well, we're gonna go on forever. So let me just not look at these anymore. Robert Spencer, thank you so much for being part of Islamicize Me.
A pleasure.
You did amazing. Now let me ask you this. I don't know if you've heard, we're gonna do something for the next 10 days called Un-Islamicize Me. And our first video is gonna be tomorrow, and it's gonna be myself, Sam, David, and John McCrae. We're gonna jump on here and we're gonna talk about a lot of the issues brought up in the video series, as well as some of the other big issues that divide Christians and Muslims, and discuss them in a more kind of theological kind of panel, just like we're doing now.
Beautiful.
And for the next 10 days. And we'd like to ask you, probably on one of the last days, we're going to talk about martyrdom and persecution. We'd like to probably ask you back. That's going to be like day 9. So I'll hit you up and see if you're available.
Yeah, I'm on the road next week. So
Okay.
yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll see what we can do.
We'll see, because it might not work based upon that, but we'll give it a shot.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. And again, everyone, check out the website, jihadwatch.org, as well as your YouTube channel and the new book coming out. Anything else you want to plug before we sign off here?
No, that's it. The new book coming out is History of Jihad, From Muhammad to ISIS, available for pre-order now on Amazon, the only book of its kind.
All right. Now check this out. Everybody listen. I'm going to go live again tomorrow for the first Un-Islamicize Me, but I've also got to go live sometime to make sure that I do a commentary on the video that's releasing tonight, the epilogue. So I don't know how I'm going to work all that out. Just pay attention to my social media stuff. You'll see it. And hey, guys, you can always stick around in the live chat for a little bit after, because even after I end the video, the live chat is still active. So we can feel free to talk afterwards. But thank you very much, Robert Spencer, for joining.
Roberto, no te vayas. Yo tengo que salir. Yo no puedo pasar toda la noche aquí. Mira.
That was fantastic. I'm signing out.